Shall we do flag salute first? I'm sorry.
Let's do flag salute.
Very good.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good, Madam Clerk.
Director Huffer?
Yes.
Director Newman?
Here.
Director Sullivan? Here. Vice Chair Nichols?
Yes.
Chair Engler?
Here. Very good. Welcome to our meeting tonight on May 16th, I guess it is? 15th, sorry. We do have public speakers right now, so Madam Clerk, do you need to do the rendition for us? Of any
We just have one.
oh, very good. Okay, well, very good. I will call to the mic then, Elaine Hagan.
And directors. My name is Elaine Hagan. I'm the coordinator for Trails Education Days, the fourth grade education program. Just wanted to do a quick recap of what happened this year. First of all, for the first time, all 17 schools participated. There were 1,053 students who came through the program. We had 29 hike leaders, so if you divide it, we had hike leaders. There were a number of hike leaders who led every single hike all 4 days. There were 109 groups, so out of 29 hike leaders, you see that there were a lot of people who did way more than one. The trails safety and courtesy workshops, we had 11 participants. And we had 16 nature center management people and general coordinators, 4 MRCA and 4 National Park Service rangers, all the COSCA rangers, and I'm probably leaving somebody out. But I estimate that a total of 350 hours of volunteer work went into that week, and it's closer to about 500 hours in total with the execution, with the planning, execution, and follow-up. COSCA Director Sullivan is the workshop leader for the trail safety and courtesy, and she works really hard. There are 6 workshops each day for 4 days, so she knows the routine very well. In recent years, we've had a hard time recruiting equestrians. This program involves an equestrian with a very well-trained horse, a hiker with a dog, and a bicyclist. And what happens is that they all interact, but they do it badly. Dorothy always says, watch out, you're going to see adults do really dumb things that you should never do in the open space. And so they do things like the dog is off leash, the biker doesn't have a helmet on, the equestrian throws a water bottle or litter on the trail, all kinds of things, 14 things. And then the children tell her what was wrong. So that's reverse psychology, and we think it works. Anyhow, in recent years, we've had a hard time recruiting equestrians, but because of people aging out or moving or whatever. But this year, I was thrilled when Ride On Therapeutics stepped up. And Sarah Jones, who's one of the directors, one of the founders, I think, has just loved it. She came two days. They brought a total of two people each day on horses. And I saw her on Monday, and I said, well, so what do you think? And are you in? And she said, yeah, we're in. So we're very pleased about that. We really appreciate it. Anyhow, it was a wonderful week, and that it was cool and overcast. It was almost chilly, and that is so much better than when it's 95 degrees. It was great. So anyway, Again, we were really fortunate to have NPS and MRCA rangers there every day. And our COSCA rangers, as always, were extremely wonderful, very helpful, anything we needed. Plus, they did great presentations. So I just came from the writing contest judging, which it was quite an event. We have 5 grand prize winners, and 2 winners from each school. And a total of 8 people, I think 8 people, decided who the winners were. At least 7 of them are retired teachers. So, including Nellie Cusworth, who is a CRPD board member. Anyhow, so you'll all get the information about the contest winners. They'll be, unfortunately, timing is everything. They'll be presented at CRPD and at City Council, so you'll all meet them in one or another place. But sadly, the timing just doesn't work for them to be presented to you. So, anyhow, I guess that's about it, and I thank you very much. Thank you for those of you who participated and attended, Director Newman and Dorothy. I don't know where we'd be without you, so thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Elaine, for the report. That's fantastic. You mentioned all 17 schools. I presume that's 17 public elementary schools?
I'm sorry, I should have qualified. All 17 CVUSD elementary schools. For several years, Earths did not participate because they felt that they were doing a lot of other things involving nature and open space and like that. But John Noble, who is a COSF director and I think he's also a COSTAG member and a major volunteer, works for the school district, and so he talked the principal into participating. And all reports are that they loved it, the teachers are thrilled with it, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but they participated fully in the writing contest, and one of the 5 grand prize winners is from Earths. Anyway, so.
Just a quick follow-up. Are private schools or home schools also invited to participate?
No, only because there's only so many days and so many volunteers. So we have limited it to CVUSD. So,
All right.
anyway,
Thank you.
thank you.
And thank you so much for all you've done. I know that it's a tradition in the Conejo Valley to have the trails days, education days. And I know all of our kids took part in it, and
Yeah,
it
it's so
stays
cool.
with them the rest of their life.
Yeah, since 1992. We started in 1992, so it's been a while. Thank you.
Please do.
One of the things that I always enjoy about the workshop is asking if any of the kids have this is the first time hiking that trail, and it's surprising how many it is. So we're getting more younger stewards for the trails. They'll bring their parents back on the trail. So it's a fabulous program, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Thanks for all you do for it, Elaine.
Any other comments? Very good. Let's go on to our next bit of business. We do have our consent calendar. Would anybody like to move the consent calendar?
So moved.
I'll second.
Very good. If we can have our vote.
Director Huffer,
Yes.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Sullivan,
Aye.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Chair Engler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Let's go on to our action items. We have several things going on today, and I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Huber over there, Huber, I mean, to go over our first item, A.
Good evening, Chair Engler and members of the board. I have a brief PowerPoint. For this year's COSTAC recruitment process, there were 3 scheduled vacancies to fill. The recruitment period opened on February 6th when the City Clerk's Department posted the customary vacancy notice and issued a press release to announce it. Recruitment information was also posted on city and COSCA social media platforms, published in the city's City Scene newsletter, and shared via email with existing COSTAC members, ETI Corral 37, and Ride On Rancho Potrero Equestrian Center. Staff received 7 applications during the 30-day period. 2 were from incumbent COSTAC members, and 5 were from new applicants. The interview committee interviewed 6 applicants. 1 individual did not respond to multiple requests to schedule her interview. And once interviews were completed, the results were forwarded to the nomination subcommittee for the determination of nominees. Did I miss that slide? I guess I did, sorry. For members, the nomination subcommittee recommends Tom Becker, Dave Filgus, and Norman Lee Hodge. Tom is a hiker, is very engaged as a volunteer, and currently coordinates the Trailhead Outreach Program. Dave is a trail runner and a regular participant in several volunteer programs, including Adopt a Trail, Trailhead Outreach, and Trails Education Days. Norman is a hiker and is interested in protecting open space and sharing its benefits with others. For alternates, the nomination subcommittee recommends Heather Hoyt and Matt Kohler. Heather is a mountain biker who's interested in participating in COSCA's volunteer programs and being further involved in the community. And Matt is a hiker and is interested in contributing to the stewardship of COSCA open space and sharing its benefits with others. With that, staff recommends that the Board of Directors find that this action is not a project under CEQA and approve the COSTAC members and alternates as recommended by the nomination subcommittee. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions? Any discussion or comments? Then we do it, this is an action item, so we would need a motion to accept the recommendations.
I'll
Mr.
move to accept staff recommendations.
Very good.
I'll second.
Very good. Madam Clerk.
Director Huffer,
Yes.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Sullivan,
Aye.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Chair Engler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Let's go on to our item B. I understand that Mr. Stark is going to be our guide on this one, so please go ahead, Mr. Stark.
Well, thank you, Chair Engler and members of the board. The item before you here is the First Amendment to a weed abatement contract with the Standard Construction, who is doing business as SoCal Brush, and to find that this is not a project as defined under CEQA. COSCA partners with the City of Thousand Oaks and the Conejo Recreation and Park District in a common contract to implement weed abatement as required by the fire department. Approximately 350 acres of open space and parks are treated annually. The current contract for this work was approved by all the agencies in the spring of 2021, and the contract includes task funding for both regular weed abatement and then the extra services for all the recuts. Due to heavy rains and an extended wet season in 2023 and the related regrowth of vegetation, the contract funds for extra services have been depleted. SoCal Brush has also requested a rate increase for regular services to offset increased operational costs resulting from an inflationary market. COSCA staff met with staff from the city and the park district to determine acceptable increases, and the city, as the lead agency on the contract, successfully negotiated rate increases that each agency found to be fair and reasonable. COSCA's share of added contract expenses can be accommodated within COSCA's existing budget through June of 25, so we're not asking for any additional appropriation of funds at this time. The extra costs for the coming years will be incorporated into the next fiscal year budget that for the year starting in July of 25. The City of Thousand Oaks and Conejo Recreation and Park District have already approved the contract amendment, so staff now recommends that the COSCA board approve the contract amendment as well and to make the CEQA finding. And with that, I am available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Any questions? Mr. Newman.
Thank you. And Mr. Stark, thank you for your report. I'm wondering if, given that costs are going up for everyone, was there any
outreach to other agencies to see if what kinds of hikes they're facing with landscaping costs, and if so, whether the costs negotiated here were, or the increases were in line with those, what other folks are seeing.
I can only speculate that would probably be the case, depending on where one area is located and how much rain they got last year. The negotiations kind of started with the existing contract that we already have that was competitively bid. Even with the increase that we're seeing with the contract that we've agreed to, that is still it's still lower than the next highest bid that we had. So we felt that we landed within the bounds of the budget that what we expected to pay. So I don't think it really necessitated a great deal of extra research, especially on a tight timeline when we've already got to get started on this work, and we're already doing it. Yeah.
So even with the additional cost, still lower than the original next highest bid.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Nichols.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Stark and perhaps Mr. Kuba could listen in on this too. I'm just wondering from past experience with this very extensive list of properties that we have. I notice quite a variety of expenses from not too much to a significant amount. And I just was wondering if those could be parsed out, not tonight, parsed out in such a way where there's a group of them that are perhaps not as difficult as others and fairly easy to attain. Get some work done by maybe some able-bodied youth at a reasonable rate that would be less than what we pay for these types of contractors. Has that been something that's been considered as far as moving forward?
Well, we haven't really considered anything like that. The executing on this contract as it is quite a feat of logistics. The average size of a treatment area, maybe an acre or less. So deploying people out to so many different places and then arranging separate monitoring and follow-up, we think would probably be inefficient. We do think that there's opportunities for volunteer groups, but we have other ideas where they could be most helpful for COSCA, I believe. And especially when we're trying to manage this over 3 different agencies, all paying attention to their own units. Like you said, there's a lot of them. So I think the complication in there of adding an extra cog into the wheel works against our efforts, especially since we want to start the weed abatement work in time to finish by the June 1st deadline, but we don't want to start it too early because then the grass grows back. So we're under an incredible time constraint to try and execute on this work.
Thank you.
Other questions? Very good. Any other discussion on our action item here? Very good. Then, Madam Clerk, can we have a vote?
Do we have a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. We do need a motion, don't we? Go ahead.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Very good. I think we're official now.
Director Huffer?
Yes.
Director Newman?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Chair Engler?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Very good. Let's go on to our item number C. Again, I believe that's Mr. Stark.
I'll be here all night, thank you. The next item, 5C, is consideration of approval of a license agreement with the Safe Passage Youth Foundation for a restoration project at the Los Robles open space, and to also make a finding that this action is categorically exempt from CEQA under Section 15304. COSCA has been approached by the Conejo Youth Conservation Corps, which is a project of Safe Passage Youth Foundation, to implement native vegetation planting on a site located within the Los Robles open space. The Safe Passage Youth Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that promotes youth safety, health, literacy, and community engagement. You can see a number of our fine members here in the audience, and thank you very much for coming out tonight. I do have a brief slideshow to go with this presentation. So the project goals that we're looking to achieve here are to establish a native live oak savanna plant community consisting of coast live oak trees and companion shrubs commonly found in chaparral areas. To get a sense of what oak savanna is, it means it's a little less dense in the oaks than an oak woodland, so it's about 10 to 15 oaks per acre. We're also seeking to increase habitat diversity at the site, as well as support youth development in the conservation field. COSCA staff, this is the project site we're looking at. COSCA staff have visited the site, and we found it to have good potential for restoration, so we think it's a well-chosen site. And we've also assisted in the development of a very simple project implementation plan. What you see on the map here, these circles are planting nodes. And when we're doing restoration in a larger area, most of what surrounds these nodes today are invasive grasses and other invasive weeds. Maintaining weeds over that entire area by planting individual plants scattered around is very difficult from a labor perspective. But if you can plant dense groupings of vegetation together, well mulched, you can very much simplify and make a lot less labor to get project success. Once these nodes are established, they do the native plants start sending out seeds, and with modest weed abatement or weed management around these areas, you'll start seeing the native species expand. So that's kind of the benefit of that strategy. The project would be all the plants and labor, of course, would be provided by CYCC, and the amount of time COSCA would need to monitor and assist with the project will be minimal and isn't basically included in our current budget. So there really isn't any extra work for COSCA. And even if we did have to go out there more often to look at stuff, that's a good excuse to get out of the office and go see how it's going. I know we have a lot of interest in this. The license agreement that we're seeking is a 3-year license agreement. And 3 years was chosen just because it takes about 3 years to get plants into a self-sustaining mode. So, that's the time to come back and irrigate and, when necessary, pull weeds and that kind of stuff. So we want to make sure there's enough time in here to invest in the project for success. The project is consistent with COSCA's goal of fostering a natural distribution of native plant and animal species throughout the open space system, by ensuring that suitable habitat conditions are maintained and that existing ecological processes continue to function naturally. The CYCC crews frequently work with COSCA rangers, and COSCA has confidence in the group and their leadership to be successful. We're excited about the opportunity to work with the program and think we could have a lot of fun and learn a lot of things, and we'll get some habitat out of it at the end of the day. So staff recommends that the board approve the proposed license agreement and find that the project is categorically exempt under CEQA. And with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Any questions from Mr. Stark? Mr. Huffer.
I'm just curious, Brian, out of the thousands of acres we have out there, how did you happen upon this, decide on this one parcel?
Well,
It was all his fault, huh?
Yeah, well, recommended, of course, by Tim over here with the CYCC. The area that it's an interesting area though, because it's an area that it had historically been denuded of vegetation for a fire break. It's no longer functional or managed that way. So today it's the remnants of a past land use that damaged the habitat there. So restoring it there seemed to be an appropriate location. Of course, there's no shortage of places on COSCA open space to restore. But if the intention was to work around oak trees as the center of it. So most of our open space is chaparral and coastal sage scrub type habitats where it would be hard to do the oaks. The site seems better suited to as a project that's based around oak trees.
Okay. And presumably this is just a first shot for the 3 years, and this will be almost a multiple lifetime project so that eventually all of our open space will be restored?
Well, Rome wasn't certainly built in a day, and restoration is a slow and expensive process. But on a project like this, where we get to engage the group of with a community nonprofit and energetic youth, that makes every little dollar go farther. The project's grant funded for CYCCs, and they're looking at potential of additional grants over the years. So conceivably, this project could be renewed and expanded over time. We're starting small. We'll learn our capabilities and scale future work accordingly.
Great, thank you.
My question was asked and answered. Thank you.
Okay.
See how efficient we can be?
Yes.
Perhaps this is a better question for the applicant, but how many hours of work do you anticipate being needed, first for the installation and then for the maintenance?
Well, I should have that number right off the top of my head, having done it for 20 years. No, it's a significant amount of time that it's going to take to do it. I imagine the install it depends on how often they're available to work. You know, if I had my crews on it, that would take 3 weeks or so to install. But it'll probably be a more measured approach because, we're teaching new methods and learning new things. So it'll probably start slowly and build up over time.
Any other questions or comments?
With the group here, are we going to hear from them?
Yes, well,
Okay.
we have, one of the applicant has put a card in, so we will have them give a little talk. Any other questions from our group up here? Well, very good. Let me call Mr. Tim Hagel to the podium. And if we have any questions, I'm sure Tim will be able to help.
I think I'd just give my time over to Brian because he said it all perfect of everything going on. We picked the site out because in 1983 we started restoration in that area more to the east of that. Booted out the fire department, COSCA and CRPD did, and it was every year they used these dozers that were a third of the size of this room with chains where the links were this big, around 400 feet of it. And that was the method, as you know, Chair, that was the method at the time. And they attach it to 2 dozers and go through there and wipe everything out. And then the chamise, and this won't mean anything to you, but a lot of the chamise and ceanothus would find its way back each year. It's just like getting a haircut. But what wouldn't come back, because they're much more sensitive, were the oaks. So those remnants, and then of course making for the invasive plants. So I think Brian just said it all perfect. Our goal is, this is a proof of concept. We have a grant from the Ventura County Community Foundation. These young teenagers here, and I'll introduce them really quick. This is a multi-prong. It's environmental education, and it's vocational training, and it's also economic input. So through the grant, no adults were not allowed to be paid. The youth are all being paid for their hours. Last year, with Matt and the team of Rangers, we put in about 980 hours for COSCA. And when you asked Brian how many hours this is going to take, I was just going to whisper, a lot. Yeah. And so with that said, I'll answer some questions, but I just wanted to introduce them first. We're going to try this is their first act of civic government. So out of this whole group, not one has ever been to City Hall. So this is, I'd like to, if I could just take 1 minute and have them just stand and say their name, if that's okay with you, and what school they go to. Come on, Joanna, stand up.
I'm Joanna, and I go to
I'm Alex, and I go to Sequoia. I'm Michael, and I go to
All right, thank you, kids. We have, Marty, we have 2 or 3 that aren't here tonight. They've got all kinds of things going on. And if I could just ask Marisol and Renee to stand and introduce themselves.
I'm Renee McDonough, and I graduated from He's graduating on Saturday from San Diego.
Congratulations.
So Marisol is the official. She runs the crew. All those kids. Marisol runs the crew, and she has mimicked the CYCC crew she received from the Justice Grant Program from Ventura County, and she knocked off this and started a really successful one based on CYCC in Fillmore. So we're real proud of her. And Renee works a gazillion hours every week. She finds all these kids. So they're both very self-deprecating and modest, but the cog for the wheel is these 2 women right here. So our goal is proof of concept. Ventura County Community Foundation has been very positive. There are no tax dollars being paid on this. And if we prove it, the concept, they're very open to repeating for different projects throughout COSCA lands over another 2 years after this. So we're already trying to telling Anna and Matt and Brian think, we'll learn on this. We're going to make some mistakes, but our plan, to your point, is we will, as soon as approved, we will start planting operations. Our goal is to attend the project area once per week all the way through December 31st. So through the hot summer, we'll be watering every single week to make sure. We want to get the survival rate up on these. But we can't do it without their guidance, and they got a lot of experience doing this, so we appreciate it. If there's any questions, otherwise, I'll sit down.
Any questions, commissioners? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Tim, Mr. Hagel, thank you for this introduction. It's a great program. And I know I've talked to you about some of the program I was involved with in Glendale, which is very similar. I'm just thrilled to see that this is moving forward. And you did actively describe how there's multiple facets involved with this, and to elevate and not only the resource but some very special people at the same time. The question I had is, when you talk about the education component, is there any type of I don't know some other term to use, but like certification, where just they get authorized for recognition for the work that they put forth in some type of environmental aspect with this type of a project?
Well, one recognition is payday on Friday for them. That's one. I just say, because that's what my boss used to say whenever I'd say to the sheriff, you could just tell me thank you once. And he said, I tell you every 2 weeks in your paycheck. That's an aspect we haven't thought of, and it would be great. I know we worked into our grant. We worked into the grant for bringing in training for the kids. So like I have scheduled a botanist to come in, and on when we're actually working up there, bring in a Native Plant Society botanist to be there at least one during the times and talk to the kids. So anything, we'll take input from Anna, Brian, and Matt. They're critical parts of this. The education, we have the ability to throw education classes for the kids, and they're paid for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I was quite interested. I was reading through this, and I thought, they left out the most important information, which is how much it's going to cost COSCA to do this. And then I saw that one little line that you've already obtained the funding. So kudos to you. I know you're just...
That's Vanessa Bechtel at the Ventura County Community Foundation. She's the one that just heard our story and said, we're behind it. We'll do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and thank you all in advance for the work you're going to be doing. We look forward to some awesome results, not only in the ground, but in your lives. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can we kind of sneak out with them? I got to get them back home for homework and all that stuff.
I'd be happy to have you sneak out.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, any other discussions? This is another action item. Any discussion or any further questions? All right, very good. Then I'll entertain motions.
So moved.
Very good. Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right. Very good. Madam Clerk.
Director Huffer?
Yes.
Director Newman?
Gratefully, aye.
Director Sullivan?
Enthusiastically, aye.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Chair Engler?
Very much so. And thank you to Mr. Hagel, and also thank you to the kids. This is going to be a good experience for everybody, especially for us, because we get to restore some of our open space. So thank you for that in advance.
Mhm.
Homework's next. They'll talk about it.
Very good. Okay, on to our next item. The City of Thousand Oaks would like an easement by Mr. Stark. I believe you have this one as well.
Yep, so the next item up for you is item 6D, consideration of granting an easement to the City of Thousand Oaks for the Westlake Boulevard Flood Mitigation Project. That's a little part of the North Ranch open space, and to make a finding that this is not a project under CEQA. I do have a brief slideshow. So the map kind of shows where the project location is. It's up on Westlake Boulevard, just south of Canaan. And you can see from the photos there, what happened was after the Woolsey fire in 2018, we did have subsequent heavy rain events that resulted in stormwater, debris, and sediment inundating portions of Westlake Boulevard, and the road ultimately became impassable. The federal disaster declaration resulting from the fire did make funding available for damage mitigation projects, and the City of Thousand Oaks was successful in acquiring funding to prevent similar impacts in the future. So there's a lot to digest here, but you won't have to read this entire slide. Protection of Westlake Boulevard will be accomplished actually by using a new V-ditch, which is just a concrete drainage structure, and a sediment wall to convey water to a proposed catch basin system, which connects with an existing storm drain. So if you look at the picture kind of on the far left there, that's north oriented. So they'll collect the water and sediment coming down. There'll be a wall along Westlake Boulevard and a drainage feature behind it that conveys the material, water and sediment, down to two sediment basins down at the bottom of that figure. The big gray blobs there are oak trees, and just shows that the project design was made so it would stay out of the drip line of oak trees. The project area it doesn't consume very much area. I think I might have another. Oops. I guess I went down to I just have one slide on that one. Anyway, COSCA staff did participate in the project design process and provided input and feedback on the design elements. Among the accommodations that were incorporated into the design is that it'll be a 200-foot long wall, and every 50 feet there'll actually be an offset where there'll be a gap in the wall and another wall is set behind it. They overlap. And the reason for this is that this is in an area where wildlife cross Westlake Boulevard, and it kind of has a higher level of roadkill in this area. So we didn't want small mammals to get caught behind a wall and not be able just to get back up onto the open space on the other side. So every 50 feet there's a gap, and there'll be a little soil ramp behind it so wildlife could move up there. Of course, they also accommodated the oak trees to try and avoid any oak tree impacts. The area that will be disturbed as part of the project has been disturbed in the past when Westlake Boulevard was put in, so it's not really breaking virgin ground there. And all the vegetation that's along that area is already a managed city streetscape, so it's an irrigated landscape area. The area is already managed by the city for landscaping. The project doesn't create any new management responsibilities for COSCA. So when the easement is granted, it conveys the maintenance and management of this area to the city. We maintained ownership of the property rather than just granting them the ownership of it, just to keep COSCA's input viable for the long term in managing it and maintaining it. So we'll be able to participate if anything needs to be adjusted or changed over the years. That we work well with the Public Works Department, and we're happy to facilitate any future type work. So at the end of the day, the project does improve public safety with pretty minimal impacts on open space. So staff recommends approving the grant of the easement to the city to install and manage the project area, and to find that granting the easement is not a project under CEQA. And with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Questions? Go ahead, Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since this is a new proposed for this type of erosion control or storm situation, and it's never happened in the past, is this type of condition only expected in a post-fire situation where if the site were to burn again, that we would see this erosion, or is this something that could happen with any abundance of rainfall in any given year?
I think it's probably primarily to suit fire damage areas. I mean, that area, although our fire frequency is increasing in that area, nonetheless, when a fire does come through, the impacts of it can be long lasting. And when you have when the rain destabilizes the hillside after a rainstorm, that destabilization can last longer. So it's just it's a safety feature of putting something like this in, because what used to be on that hillside is no longer on that hillside. So there isn't a known outcome. Yes, it's likely that vegetation will establish in these areas and mitigate large level debris flows, but we honestly don't know that because the land surface has changed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I do have one more question, and this is regarding the easement deed, and I was just a little confused in reading it, not just because I'm unfamiliar with deeds, but just some of the language. I noticed in the one paragraph where it has bold regarding a permanent easement, the first sentence says, not to be limited to the right, but not the obligation, et cetera, et cetera. But then the sentence below that said that the city will be solely responsible for. And so it just seems to me that they were conflicting, that the one paragraph says that they're, shall not include the obligation to do it, but then they will be solely responsible. Is there, maybe help me clarify in my mind what that means?
I can help unless Noel wanted to chime in on that one. So generally, the easement comes before the project. So, but the easement doesn't require the project to be installed. So that's what the non-obligation is.
Okay.
The responsibility happens if they build the project.
Okay. All right. So it's a two-part easement almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Okay. Gotcha.
we just have
All
to
right.
put the horse before the cart.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just a couple of quick questions, Mr. Stark. There's a mention of the wall, and I appreciate the windows for small critters to get through and that sort of thing, the wildlife. How tall is this wall? I don't remember seeing the size or the height of it.
I think it's like maybe 3 feet. So it's not. It won't be a big monolith. It's rather subtle in its size. It's just so when the soil comes down, it doesn't go over so there'll be this sort of V-shaped ditch on the uphill side of it, and that's to make sure that it doesn't just fly over it, that it keeps it contained.
Yeah, I've seen those in other areas where there's a small 2 to 3 foot wall to help contain some of the flow.
Yeah, it's a pretty common. We're not breaking new design ground on a project like this.
We could get awards if we did that,
Yeah.
Are we talking about a large amount of dirt going to have to be moved for these retention basin things here?
The basin is about 25. The big one, I think, is maybe 25 feet square, so it's not enormous. Yes, there will be soil that will have to be moved out of there, but the volume of it is not that high. I don't have the specifications on grading. So.
And is it going to be concrete, or is it going to be natural drainage and seepage through there?
Yeah, they're going to plan on it'll be the bottom of the basin will be left as soil for infiltration. Mm-hmm. Only the edges will have a concrete lining just to keep them stable.
Thank you. Any other questions from my colleagues? Very good. This is another action item, so we need to have a motion. Go ahead.
I'll move approval of staff recommendations.
Seconded.
Very good, thank you. And Madam Clerk?
Director Huffer,
Yes.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Sullivan,
Aye.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Chair Engler.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Very good. We do have another item, a contract item. I believe that Mr. Stark is also presenting.
Yeah, you're not tired of me yet, so. Item 6E before you is approval of a contract with Woods Maintenance Services for $109,000 to remove trash from Arroyo Conejo and to appropriate an additional $24,000 from the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund and to find that the project is categorically exempt under CEQA. I have a slide just to put up while I'm giving my presentation that provides a little context. So trash impacts riparian habitat areas by contributing pollutants to local waterways and creating dangerous conditions for wildlife. And what you can see is we're looking particularly here is at the blue shaded section on the map as the project area. Trash washing into the arroyo and trash generated by nearby encampments is negatively affecting the Arroyo Conejo Creek. Removal of trash is a priority action for our resource management program, and at the COSCA board meeting in September of 2023, the board appropriated $50,000 from the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund land management allocation to remove trash from this 2,000-foot long section of Arroyo Conejo Creek. Additional funds have also been committed to the project by the City of Thousand Oaks and the Conejo Open Space Foundation. On April 12th of this year, COSCA released a public request for proposals and qualifications through the city's procurement portal, seeking qualified bidders to undertake the project tasks. A mandatory job walk was conducted on April 24th and was attended by 7 prospective contracting businesses. Ultimately, 5 proposals were received on May 10th and were reviewed by COSCA City and CRPD staff. Based on the proposal reviews and bid prices, COSCA selected Woods Maintenance Services Incorporated for the contract award. The choice of contractor was based on the contractor's experience working in similar environments and working on projects at a similar scale. The clarity and completeness of the proposal and their competitive price. The selected contractor's bid, however, results in a project cost exceeding the initial project budget of $85,000. However, the project is still an important one for meeting COSCA's natural resources management responsibilities. Therefore, staff is recommending an additional appropriation of $24,000 from the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund, the land management allocation, to complete the funding for the project. The proposed project will improve habitat quality almost immediately and begin the process of returning Arroyo Conejo Creek to a natural condition. With respect to impacts of encampments in this area currently does not have any active encampments. The last one was moved out about a week and a half ago. So we're ready to come in and move into this area and clean it up. So staff ultimately, we recommend that the board approve the contract with Woods Maintenance Services for $109,000, appropriate the additional $24,000 from the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund, and find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA. And with that, I am available for questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Stark. Any questions? I do have a question too, but very good. In terms of this is strictly trash removal. We're not going to do any invasive weed removal with this particular.
No, actually, the blue shaded area on the map is actually one section of an area where we're already conducting invasive species removal. That's the Arundo Donax canes and the Mexican fan palms. And so it was really after all the initial biomass of that material was removed that we could see that we had a garbage problem. Now is a great time to go clean it up because the place is pretty open and the trash is accessible. We're already seeing the native plants recolonize the area, so we'll be down there for another 2 years at least doing retreatments on the Arundel and continuing the work on the Palms. So, yeah, we've kind of already did that with a different contract, and so this is dealing with problem number 2.
Very good. And then, is this left over from encampments, or does it flow in from upstream?
It's both. Most of the urban part of Thousand Oaks drains into channels and drains and whatever, but it all kind of ends up here in Arroyo Conejo before it's journeyed down past the Hill Canyon and out to the ocean. So a lot of what the trash is, here, it's a combination of urban litter, but there's also upstream encampments when the stuff washes down. At some point, all the trash heading toward the ocean probably spends some amount of time on this little piece of property or somewhere on COSCA property. We have had encampments here in the past, but this area, since we started doing the Arundel removal, and we've and the area's been opened up, we've been spending more time patrolling and managing the homeless situation in that area. That's still it's still an issue we grapple with, but we're working with community partners to do the best we can to find alternative housing for people and to move the encampments to an area with at least where they're not causing environmental damage.
Yeah, our unhoused folks that have frequented that area.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any for the stuff that flows downstream? Do we have a catchment, or I've seen in other areas where they have screens that they use to try to limit the extent to where the trash flows?
Yeah, normally where we see those screens are in concrete channels that, because those are easier to set up that kind of infrastructure in, where you just kind of have a smooth flowing thing and you can direct all the water into a net. Working within a native, stream or riparian habitat area, it's a little different. The trash gets hung up in the vegetation that's already there, then it just works its way down with each successive flood. It probably wouldn't be practical to do that in this part of the watershed. Conceivably farther down the watershed at an ocean outlet or something, that's usually where you see these things. It's just not a practical thing. It's the geomorphology of the area just doesn't lend itself well to that kind of a solution.
No, I was just thinking of the South Fork of the Arroyo up above that area. It is a box culvert right now.
Yeah, conceivably that's outside of COSCA's ability. Now I know the city did install some trash racks on the culvert that comes under the 101 there, just upstream from this project, and that does interdict some of the stuff, but they also found that it clogged pretty quickly, and people have actually already gone in and damaged it to a point where it's not entirely functional. But it takes a lot of different approaches with a lot of different agencies to do our water quality protection. And our partners at the city are doing a lot upstream from us, so we think there's been a lot more activity at the city recently too. So I think now's a good time to be doing this work, because our work builds on the work of other agencies.
Sure. No, I highly encourage what we're doing here. It's great. Any other comments or questions? Yes, go ahead, Dorothy.
Thank you. Once this is all cleaned out, is there a plan or a discussion about how to keep it that way so we don't wind up back here again?
Yeah, what we're looking at down here now is probably about a decade's worth of accumulated garbage. So it's not really the stuff that's going to be there all the time. We think long term, keeping an area clean could be easier. And we do see a role for volunteers long term in some areas of the Arroyo. Volunteers work where there's good easy access, like this area. Is a pretty easy place to access, and there's vehicle access, so it's pretty easy to manage. There's other areas where we'll probably continue to depend on contract labor just for the more difficult stuff. At this time, it was too big of a job to throw volunteers on. It would probably be rather depressing, and it could take a long time. And we're anxious to get it clean and get as many months of nice clean creek into this as we can before next winter comes. But this is also a learning experience for COSCA. This is the first time we've done anything of this scale. So we'll be learning how this works, and next year we'll see, well, how much does wash in next year? We honestly don't know. So we'll, the plan though is to take a section like this, and once we've cleaned it and claimed it and restored it, that we commit to it over the long haul.
Go ahead, Mr. Huffer.
Yeah, Brian, excuse me, you termed this a learning experience. If we have future projects, large projects in terms of taking out invasive species, part of that process is removing what you've cut down. And I would guess that there are different types of contractors. One type of contractor is good at cutting down plants and removing the green waste, but they might not be qualified to remove the other stuff. But it just, I wonder if there's some way if we have a future project like this, where if they're in there and they discover all this trash after they've removed all the invasive species, rather than having people going in twice, just have them go in once and remove the green waste and remove the other waste.
I guess my initial response is that's two really big projects going on at the same time, because we really don't have we know of one contractor that does both, but that's unusual. The companies that bid on this project are engaged in hazardous waste management and maintenance services, and done similar projects like the creek cleanups, but they would have no expertise in managing invasive species. So yeah, I think we're thinking two different contractors in the grand scheme. But like I said, I think once, there's kind of a finite end to the weed management, once we remove those invasives, knock them out, there's some maintenance over time that we'll continue to do in there. But I think the trash issue could be, longer term, but at a lower level than what we're seeing now. Just if we clean it every year, it's going to be a lot easier. So I think the bigger expense is just up front, get it clean. From there on out, I think costs drop a lot. It'd be nice if I could find a contractor that could do everything.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian, you said something that piqued my interest, but you're saying that we're, in essence, keeping trash taking trash out of the stream bed to prevent it from getting out to the ocean, amongst other locations. I just was wondering, knowing that this source of water, blends with the water that's coming out of Hill Canyon and is used by the agricultural folks on the Oxnard Plains, and that whatever's not used goes out to the ocean. And if there's some value to be recognized by those water users or the ocean being clean, that there could be some partnerships with those entities, either the water users, or if there's some type of an environmental grant available for, in essence, cleaning the ocean before it gets dirty. Has that been investigated by chance?
Not so far, but whenever we're talking about problems that are kind of systemic in a watershed, we really do want to look at them at a watershed level. We know that the city's heavily involved in work kind of upstream of where we are, because our property here is kind of the beginning of where it goes from an urban drainage back into a natural system. The trash that enters the creek can and does create water pollution. So yeah, there'll definitely be benefits to downstream users. We've been kind of thinking, theoretically at this point, that the COSCA property that's easily accessible in areas like this, that most of the garbage washing down the stream will at some time spend part of its lifetime on our property. And if we can interdict it at that time and clean it out, then we reduce what's going downstream. And I think that, that serves that serves the entire community really by having a safer, healthier environment. But it does benefit downstream users. So far, there hasn't been that kind of integration among agencies looking at, the water users, in the San Jose Valley. They're, that water's going into the ground. They're taking it out of the ground. So, I think, that's something that we need to look at. But, like I said, we're not it's a little separated from the garbage that's on the surface. But, you know, I think these types of projects do have a lot of benefits. There likely are grant programs out there to do this. We felt, you know, it's a good use of COSCA funds up front that we've set aside for, you know, for these types of land management decisions for us to get in there and do what we can. You know, the information we garner during this project, I mean, we've already learned a lot already. We know how much it costs to clean 2,000 feet of creek, right? And that's going to help us calibrate long-term costs for the rest of our ownership. I mean, ultimately, we want the garbage out. It's just some areas are accessible and easier to clean, and some are extremely difficult to access down there. Once you get downstream of the play fields, doing anything at a large scale down there is going to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? One quick question for you, Brian. I know that I've been involved in the past with Heal the Bay stuff that occurs in our drainages. Is there any coordination with that group at all on this, or can there be in the future?
Oh, there certainly can be. I mean, as long as there's other groups that have the same interest as we do, you know, those are opportunities. You know, a lot of times they may, you know, it's a division of labor thing. You know, maybe we won't partner on each individual project, but if we know that other groups are doing projects in the watershed that are contributing to, you know, greater ocean health and water quality downstream, you know, I think, you know, our whole watershed community benefits from that. You know, the more likely thing is that we'll still be heading things up on our own up here, but possibly if there's funding opportunities through some of these other organizations, that, you know, we're certainly willing to put in the effort to, you know, try and match the money we're putting in, you know, and get good value out of our expenses.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Very good. I think this is another action item. So if we can get a motion or two.
All motion.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Director Huffer?
Yes.
Director Newman?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Chair Engler?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
And I'm just going to guess that this next item is also Mr. Stark.
It's the last one. So.
Yes, Mr. Stark, go ahead. This is a Fire Safe Council.
Yeah, so the item before here, 6F, is a contract with the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council for community wildfire safety services in the amount of $141,600. Back following the Woolsey fire, you know, we went in with other cities to seek a settlement of the damages, and when we received those damages, we created the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund. I'm sure you're all intimately familiar with it by now. You know, one small part of that was allocated to assist in, you know, our neighbors out in the community, you know, who are feeling uncomfortable about fire safety, you know, living near open space, and that we saw a need for an effort to engage our citizenry and you know, all of us learn together how we can best protect our community. At that time, there really wasn't a whole lot of people to talk to about that, you know, besides, you know, the fire department. You know, and of course they play an important role in fire planning and prevention and, you know, protection as well. We started working with the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council back in 2020, so we've contracted with them in 2020 and in 2022 for services that provided community workshops on home hardening and defensible space around the home. We did direct mail to homeowners with wildfire safety information. We went out and did free home hardening inspections where the Fire Safe Council would come out and point out ways people could make their home safer. They did free chipper days to dispose of landscape waste. And we last year even piloted a program to assist low-income seniors in implementing some of these home hardening practices. all of these together, we think have been pretty successful. The conversation in the community has changed dramatically, and people are expressing a lot of interest in, what people can do around homes to protect them from wildfires. At the same time, a lot of our efforts were being scattered, they're occurring all over the city. So together they weren't adding up to community level type protection. So for 2024, we've been in discussions with the Fire Safe Council about where we go from here, and we really think we need to focus the efforts where our programs are targeted directly at those communities that are neighbors to COSCA's open space. Fire travels in two directions. It can come from the wild land to a home, but it can come from a home to the wild land too. So I think working with those neighbors that are closest to us makes the most sense to centralize our efforts. And along the way, we've had some challenges too in these other projects that we've learned from, and that's kind of where this new proposal comes from, is taking some of what we've learned in the past and applying it to a new strategy in 2024. So the proposed contract has three central tasks. One is to establish FireWise USA certified communities in areas adjacent to open space. So what is a Wildfire USA community? The National Fire Protection Association actually had this program for quite some time already that promotes community level organizing and planning and implementation of fire safety. So the smallest FireWise community can be eight homes, and it can go up to about 2,500. But they really like the smaller ones where the neighbors can get together, and as part of that, they create a 3-year plan for how they're going to ramp up efforts to implement fire safety, and that's going to be stuff on homes, the home hardening, but it could also be vegetation management, landscaping, working with their HOAs and things like that. We think and there's been a lot of interest in the FireWise communities. There's, I think, 3 or 4 now certified in the Conejo Valley. The Fire Safe Council says they're talking to at least 10 other neighborhoods now, and more, and their phone's ringing all the time over this. So there is a lot of community interest in doing this. The issue that a lot of these groups are having is that early coordination. How do we apply for this? What does this mean on the application? What's a 3-year management plan? What things should we be looking at? And that's where this task would come in, is the Fire Safe Council would provide assistance in guiding these communities toward their certification. The Ventura County Fire Department's invested heavily in FireWise communities. They had a big 2-day conference on it last year. It was really well attended, and it was a really well presented pitch for this idea. The Fire Safe Council works very closely with Ventura County Fire Department, so when a community expresses interest, the Fire Safe Council gets together with the fire department. They'll go out to these communities and meet with people and facilitate these programs. So we think they have a lot of potential value by working with communities, because at the end of the day, your house is only as safe as, it only takes one house in your neighborhood to spread that fire into your neighborhood. So we think clustering the work makes a lot of sense. The second task on this would be creation of a protocol for seeding FireWise communities with project funding. So a lot of these communities, they're looking at projects that, these things have costs if they're going to hire landscape companies to come in and do stuff. So the idea here is, this came out of one of the issues we've had with our piloting project for the low-income seniors, was just that it was hard to find contractors who did this stuff or who wanted to do it. Even some of the materials were hard to get, because our hardware stores weren't even carrying, 1/8-inch mesh net, So the idea here would really to be incentivize implementation of these things by providing modest incentive support. In this case, it would be the support would go to the Fire Safe Council will develop a protocol for, it's sort of like creating a grant program where these are how you would justify your costs, and they can apply to, get some financial assistance. I look at it kind of like when we had the drought and we needed people to get rid of their lawns, it's like, well, of course everybody could get rid of their lawn. But a lot of people didn't do it until they got a couple of bucks for it. So by providing some incentive to these communities to spend their own money with a little contribution here, this task doesn't involve the giving of the money part. This is about developing a program that's routine and replicable for every community so they can all be treated equally. There's still a lot of learning here because they don't know what each of the new the Firewise community formation starts first, because we're really only going to be investing in the Firewise communities. But then just have a framework that says, well, here are the contractors that do this work. This is where you get these materials, and these are the tasks that need to be done in the work plans. Then they can look at potential applications for funding, and then it's likely that once these come through, I do believe it's worth it for COSCA to invest some of these fire protection funds into some of these communities to help them get a good start. It's also a part of being a good neighbor. So that's where that, and I can answer some more questions on that when we get through if you have any. The final part of it, the last task, was just documenting the procedures for implementing this type of program, because it's anticipated that local, state, and federal agencies are looking to put money into these communities and do this work. So we're trying to lay the groundwork for that. And this would, in some ways, this is building the capacity of the Fire Safe Council to manage a larger level programs for fire safety in our area. At the end of the day, it won't be COSCA out doing all this, but we're supporting a nonprofit partner that's proven a great partner and achieved a lot in our community. In a way, we're kind of on the leading edge of this. This isn't something that's happening everywhere. What's happening in fire protection statewide is fluid and always moving. So it's a little, it's on the progressive end of things, but we think for minimal input, really, we could set up programs that could really help a lot of people. So with that, staff's recommending that we enter this contract with the Fire Safe Council for the $141,600 to support the project and to make the finding that that funding this contract is not a project under CEQA. And with that, I can take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Questions from the panel? Very good. Go ahead.
Thank you. For the fire safe communities, does there need to be a certain proximity to our open space?
No, a Firewise community can build itself up anywhere.
Okay.
The point of this project is to specifically seek communities adjacent to open space, for which we'd like to concentrate our work. Our open space does, we are the wildland in the wildland urban interface. So, and like I said, when the fires go both ways, we want to invest in areas that, they benefit. This benefits COSCA, but it also benefits our neighbors.
Any other comments or questions? Very good. I just want to make a comment more than anything. I know that my personal neighborhood is currently working very hard to become a fire safe community. We've established ourselves. It is a well worth effort for neighborhoods, especially those of us who are neighbors to COSCA. And we try to be good neighbors both ways. As I said, fires go uphill and downhill. So I would encourage everyone in the audience out there that this is an important thing for us to do. It gives you the ability to really take control of some of the risk that you have by being next to open space. So if I would encourage all of us to, have the Fire Safe Council come on board and help us with that effort. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a great program. I'm actually familiar with it. We started one in Glendale about 30 years ago, so I'm familiar with it. But I just was wondering, with the 10 communities that were, I guess, that the Ventura folks have already been in contact with or have contacted them, and maybe the 4 that you hope to kind of get up and going, are these homeowners associations or neighborhoods, or just wondering what constitutes the type of community that really works for this type of program in the Conejo Valley?
Well, most of the groups organizing now are organizing through HOAs. They're kind of like the natural affinity group for neighborhoods. But it's not limited to groups that have that governing structure. And in some cases, it may not be the entire HOA that participates. The value of this program comes from people that are willing to commit to doing things over a longer period of time, because you have a 3-year action plan. You have to continue to be recertified. And well, one of the reasons people are seeking the certifications is because some insurers in California may offer insurance discounts to certified communities. We don't make that promise, though, because the insurance business is extremely volatile and a moving target. So I wouldn't say that, do it for the cheaper insurance. This is something that, people can do to save their homes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Nichols, I know that there's several in town who were HOAs. There's a couple that have already been certified and have gone through the system. I know my particular neighborhood is not an HOA, but we identify as a separate little area. So it just runs the gamut of people who are interested in doing that self-protection.
Sure. Yeah, well, I just know that with HOAs, you kind of have a built-in self-governance organization to kind of help move things forward. It's always a little challenging without that. But obviously, when you do have a neighborhood that feels like they belong together, whether they have an HOA or not, you're going to get better results. So good for you, and keep up the good work and spread that around, would you?
More block parties in every neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a fire safe party coming this weekend.
Ooh, all right.
Any other comments or questions? Very good. This is another action item, so I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, Dave. Very good. Second, moved and seconded. Ms. Clerk.
Director Huffer?
Yes?
Director Newman?
Aye.
Director Sullivan?
Aye.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Chair Engler?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. I think we finally, we have Mr. Stark off the hook. We do have some informational items coming up, and one is the COSCA volunteer core activities.
That's just receiving file.
Okay. That's a receive and
That's
file
a receive
item,
and file, I'm
right
sorry.
there.
Okay, so receive and file. And then we have ranger operations and maintenance.
True.
Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. So I do have a PowerPoint, and we'll go there. It's a rather short PowerPoint, but that does not diminish the amount of work that the Rangers have been doing. It's just a matter of the concentration of the work that they've been doing. So we'll start off with a beauty shot of Lake Eleanor. The water subsiding. If you remember last meeting, the water was overflowing the dam, and so it is going down a little bit, but it's still beautiful. And we have a game cam over in the Dos Vientos area, and it picked up this mother deer that's been walking in front of the camera over and over and over. We couldn't figure out why it was going in front of the camera so much, and it turns out it had 2 little fawns right near the camera for a couple weeks that was happening. And we're having all the cute fuzzy pictures, or that one's not fuzzy. But anyway, horned lizard, just coming out, hopefully get some ants as they come out as the warms up. And next, okay, so this is the ranger's view on a daily basis. So I was talking to Luis today. They whipped, cut, and raked a mile and a half of trail off of Lizard Rock down through Eagle Point. They were beat. So imagine you're carrying a weed whip, a pole, hedger, and a rake into Wildwood, and then cutting a mile and a half of trail. It was their full day. That's all they did today. And mostly mustered a lot of poison oak, especially through Skunk Hollow, which is near the treatment plant. That's where it gets its name. So that's been going on. This is the other activity mostly. This was one of the encampments down in the area that Brian was talking about, the cleanup, and it was a lot of work. So the cleanup crew that comes in, they deal with biohazard and everything else, and there's plenty of biohazard there. Also, the structures are massive. They lots of time to build and such. And then the next one, same thing, just a large encampment, lots of bike parts. In order to get the stuff down there, they take shopping carts, and then the shopping carts stay there. It's a very difficult situation. The additional rangers today, so 2 of the rangers were cutting. The other 5 rangers went down to do a reconnaissance of the area just to see how things are going. And they made found 7 camps. They found the individuals that were in these 2 camps in another area now. And then the 5 rangers were threatened by a person with a tire iron. And then the person had a good conversation with his tire iron. He just talked to it for a while. So that was a ranger day today. So that's what's going on. There was, not much else. I did want to show that we did finally caught an e-bike. And this was a father and his 2 kids that had come over from the Simi area. It was not a dry day when they came through, so there was a significant amount of trail damage. The adult was sighted, and so 1 out of probably 1,000 that we've seen, and so you get 1, and that's it. Hey, there's our sunset, and that was after the COSTAC meeting last month. We cut this COSTAC meeting short, 3 minutes, so we could run up onto the roof of Hillcrest and see the launch. So that's it. I'm available for questions.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Newman?
Yeah, you mentioned the unfortunate trail damage from those 3 bikes. Are you seeing trail damage from other cases as well?
Oh,
you mentioned
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's an ongoing issue.
Yes. The e-bikes, since they are not regulated like a road vehicle, there's no licensing requirement or registration yet, and I'm hoping that happens. I go back to when I got my moped when I was 15, and I rode it all over the place, and I didn't have a license, and then 2 years later, finally legislation caught up, and I had to get a license plate and helmet and do all the things. So that was great. So I'm hoping that the same thing happens here. But we can't chase these e-bikes. The kids just go off into the road the wrong direction, and they don't follow the traffic laws and stuff. It's a very dangerous situation.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we've had some accidents involved. I don't remember when mopeds came out. It was 76, 77, somewhere in there.
Yes, thanks for dating me there. Okay, good.
I'm older than you.
Okay.
But I don't remember whether those winters were particularly wet as the past 2 we've had here
Sure.
are. So it is a worry that the trails are getting ripped up as a result.
Right. And these things go 45 miles an hour, and they're doing it on the roads.
Yeah. And up.
Yeah.
And up.
Uphill.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Just one quick question for you.
Sure.
Just for the public's knowledge and everything, I'm sure this father was cited.
Mm-hmm.
Is there restitution for trail damage that could be attached to that as well?
That's in discussion. So we'll see
Very good.
how that goes.
Just for point of clarification, that those are e-motorcycles, that we still do allow class 1 e-mountain bikes
Correct.
But the class 2, class 3, and e-motorcycles.
Right. If it has a
Are
throttle,
the
it is
issues.
not allowed on open
Okay.
space.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Thank you for the report.
Sure.
Next up, we do have any updates from our city managers, city side, or from our COSCA. Mr. Stark, did we talk you out tonight? Very good. Any board member comments or, I'm sorry, Jim.
Well, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity just to mention that the members of the Canal Rec and Park Board will be going to an annual California Association of Rec and Park Districts conference, and in the event Director Nichols down there wasn't going to say anything, I thought I would say it, that he has been the president of the statewide association this year and will be kind of the host of this conference, so we will
Nice.
be gone next week.
Any other board member comments? Mr. Huffer.
Yeah, just very briefly, sort of an open space week. On Monday, the CRPD board recognized 2 people, including Joe Edmiston, who, how many decades or centuries has he been involved with Santa Monica Mountains? So we recognized him at our gratitude circle. Then I think pretty much all of us were there last night for the bridge. We're here tonight, so been a very open space week.
Yeah, very good. I just wanted to highlight again, what a great new bridge we have down in our Hill Canyon area. Good collaboration by all involved, and it'll open up that area for recreational use, and also gives the city a good secondary exit out of the Hill Canyon area in case there's ever a need again. So, well done all around. With that, we do not have a closed session tonight. So I'm going to say let's adjourn our meeting, and we'll be back in September on the 18th.